Warning, this content may be disturbing to some audiences. Subscribe, if you dare. Someone bought multiple bottles of liquid ass and poured like 10 bottles of the stuff in the men's restroom. Hey everybody, welcome to ANECDOSED. People ask Reddit. Users of Reddit. What's the most too far you've ever seen a high school prank go? Number 1. At my high school when I was a freshman, a group of seniors had broken into the school the night before with hundreds of bottles of lube to grease up all the staircases in the school. Like 15 kids went to the hospital. One kid cracked his head open and had to be rushed to the ER. Number 2. Dude in my school had a crummy old car that the lock was broken and could easily be put in neutral and pushed around. The steering is still locked, so mostly kids would push it into a parking space ahead or behind of it. One day they pushed it and it got away from them and it damaged the teacher's car. The kids owned up to it, but considering the owner was so sick of his car being messed with, he called the police. Turns out moving a car a few meters is considered vehicle theft around here, and 3 kids were charged and expelled. Number 3. Worked in a meat lab in college. Freshmen would tour. We electrocuted pigs mostly, but a rabbi would come so we kosher a few. Kids watching us work, give the electricity to hog, legs jerk hard, gate comes open, hog not dead and starts to run. Boss jumps on it, yanks back head and slice throat. Blood sprays all over kids. Not our best day. Some kids started puking. I cleaned the whole damn thing up. I'm not kosher. The lambs were why? Who knows? Point is, we referred to cutting a neck koshering. The fact he koshered a pig makes it even more funny now. Number 4. At high school, someone in my year group decided it would be a funny idea to run and tackle a bin that was leaning on a pole. He then pretended to be unconscious, and as the group of students watched on, rumors started to go around that he jumped off the second-story walkway and tackled the pole in the air and then fell towards the ground. He continued to pretend to be unconscious, and as soon as the ambulance arrived to check on his injuries, he suddenly jumped up and ran off into the distance and out of the school. Number 5. A couple of underclassmen crashed a wholesome senior prank and ruined it. The original prank was spray painting the graduating class year all over the building in washable paint, but these kids came by after they were done and did swears and slurs. The graduating class almost didn't walk until parents kept complaining that their kids wasn't at fault. They ended up having to do whatever they did to cover up the writings, and there was still a pillar with a dick on it for a few weeks after. Number 6. Someone bought multiple bottles of this stuff called liquid ass and absolutely poured like 10 bottles of the stuff in the men's restroom. It was truly the smell of putrid rotting dead elephant shit. It was horrendous. If I smelled a dead body, it would be the second worst thing I've ever smelled. It was that bad. Our poor janitor was assigned to clean it up, and so he walked in and immediately projectile vomited all over the bathroom and quit the job on the spot. We were now out of janitor, and the mess now had the new addition of vomit on top of 10 bottles of liquid ass. It took a while to find a new janitor, so the vomit just sort of sat there for a week, and it was basically a biohazard at that point. A new janitor eventually cleaned the mess in a full body suit, but even after bleaching everything we could still smell it for over 6 months. They had to permanently remove the front door to that bathroom. Number 7. Going back about 15 years ago, a group of 10 to 13 senior kids decided to raid our community school and literally rip off all tube lights, bend all ceiling fans, smash some walls, etc. There was quite a substantial amount of damage. At that time CCTVs weren't all that famous or used, so it was difficult to identify, but luckily there were some eyewitnesses and the boys and their parents were immediately summoned. Kids suspended and parents were asked to foot the bill. Oh. And the kids were named and shamed in front of the whole community. Number 8. This was actually in middle school. The bathrooms had particularly low ceilings. One day some boys went into the girls' bathroom during class time, I guess when the least amount of people would be in there, and somehow managed to get a chair up into the ceiling tiles. Many girls knew they did this, and we all thought it was pretty funny. We forgot about the chair for like a week until it came crashing down onto a girl who was using the toilet. This girl was very frail and super underweight. It came down and knocked her out. The school went on lockdown while the paramedics took her to the hospital. She was fine. They locked the bathrooms the rest of the year and only opened them between classes. Many kids would go to the nurse to use the bathroom when they couldn't hold it in class. Number 9. During every winter, this giant flock of seagulls would always show up at my high school and hang out around campus until springtime. The majority of students ate lunch outside in this huge central courtyard. The seagulls were so annoying and constantly hovering and pretty much begging for food. It was also common to get your food stolen by one if you weren't looking. One day a fellow student had some string in his backpack. So we took a 6 feet or so piece of string, tied a bite-sized piece of pizza to one end, and an empty 20 ounces soda bottle to the other. We then proceeded to throw the contraption into a group of seagulls. We never thought they'd fall for it. One seagull swallowed the pizza and started to fly across campus with the string and bottle floating behind him, hanging from his beak. The rest of the seagulls freaked out and were flying behind him as if they were chasing him. The funniest part was that a random female student looked up, saw what she believed to be a floating empty soda bottle, and screamed in horror, "OMG, that bottle is floating." The seagull then vomited up the pizza string contraption and went about his life unharmed. We felt really bad after that and decided not to prank the seagulls anymore. Continued. A few days later some younger kids, freshmen, tried to mimic our little prank. Except it all went wrong for them. A seagull fell for the bait, but ended up getting caught in a tree. The freshmen then started to panic, fearing they'd be in trouble if caught, and had to boost each other up to free the seagull from the tree. The seagull was fine and flew away, but after that, the pranking of seagulls came to an official end. Number 10. They threw water balloons from the top of the hall during an assembly. There's an above area which seniors can sit in, and it looks down on the other years. I just remember all the stars started playing and watching as the student reps came off the stage and pulled some water pistols out and started shooting the kids at the front, who happened to be all the disabled kids and refugees. The water bombs then started raining down and I could see the refugee kids, who all sit together at the front because they're in an English as a second language class, start hiding under their seats. Shit must have been traumatizing. Someone's phone got smashed. And the punishment? Everyone has to clean up then go home early. On the last day. How awful. Number 11. In Casper there are 2 high schools. One of the few cities in Wyoming that has more than one high school. Every year there are some kind of pranks on homecoming week. Well, in the gymnasium of one of the high schools, suspended over 20 feet high is a statue of a Trojan, which is the school's sports team name and mascot. Well, someone broke into the gym, somehow got the statue down. Then took it to an undisclosed location and painted it in orange and white strips, which was the color of our school. Then it was put in the homecoming parade as a float. They in turn broke into our school and painted all the hallways, floors and lockers in roller-wide green paint stripes on all 3 floors. For those who want to check, it was 1978. Number 12. When I was a freshman, the seniors hung up a blacklist everywhere in the building which depicted all the people, mostly freshmen, they hated for no specific reason. On their last school day, all of them were completely wasted. They started chasing all the people whose names and pics were on the blacklist, tied them up and brought them to a stage while the rest of the school sat downstairs, being the audience. They embarrassed these people on the stage. They poured water over them and pushed their wet heads into flour or other stuff that got sticky with the water. Some of the victims got over it fast and laughed about it later, while some broke down crying, not ever wanting to go back to school again. Later, we all had to talk to our teachers about this and tell them how we felt about it. I wasn't on that blacklist, but I knew some of the students who were. I thought it wasn't about fun anymore. By the time I was a senior, we weren't allowed to do anything of the sort anymore, so we just threw some water balloons at the other kids. It was a hot summer's day, so everybody actually liked it. Number 13. The dipshits of my 8th grade class decided to fill ping pong balls with sparkler dust, light 'em up and throw 'em in the lavatory 8 to 9 a piece every time. They would flash and smoke up the place and it would reek of plastic. Then they did it when a guy was taking a piss, the smoke triggered an asthmatic reaction, and his legs gave out while he was pulling his pants up and he smacked his head against a urinal and passed out and had an asthma attack for at least 5 minutes until a passing girl heard him choking and went in when he didn't respond to her, "Are you alright?" They suspended every kid involved and expelled 2, I think. Stupidly, the girl also got suspended because she went into the boys' lavatory. There's a happy ending here though, because after she came back the guy immediately became her best friend, and as far as I know they're happily married. Number 14. This was told to me by my father. I believe it to be true, but he may be lying. The school parking lot and the tennis courts were connected. To prevent students pulling onto the courts, there were a row of low pylons separating the areas. Class president drove an original VW Beetle. Dad, being a football player, and a few of his larger football buddies, picked the car up and put it on the tennis courts after school one day. She alerted the administration the next morning and asked them to offer amnesty to the pranksters if they just put the car back on the other side of the pylon. Being good sports and seeing a good plea deal, the boys go to the Beetle to return it to legal parking. She had filled it with a few sandbags overnight. Number 15. Our senior class thought it would be a good idea to park one person's Mini Cooper in the middle of one of the busiest hallways of the main building. Fast forward a few hours into the night, the neighbors who lived by the school saw people running around the campus and called the cops. Within minutes, several police units including a police helicopter swarmed the campus, and one by one we were escorted, at gunpoint, off the campus and detained. One of the school's administrators and all of our parents were called 3 a.m. in the morning to inform them what we did and to pick us up. The worst part was that the janitorial staff was called in early to clean up everything we had done, so when school started the following morning everything looked fine and normal. Number 16. Me and some friends thought we'd get out of school, so we caught a possum and let it go inside the school one morning. Turned out nobody noticed until lunchtime, and it ran under the table scaring everyone. Instead of playing dead, it ran away, and when people finally realized what it was in all the confusion, nobody could find it. And that was it, so we thought. A couple weeks later there was a horrible dead smell under the bleachers, and finally they found it squashed by a folding section. Closed the gym for an entire month and we had to run on the track. Number 17. My high school has a large wooden tiger that is in the commons and was painted in great detail, and when I went there was a large locked metal fence around it. Come to find out, it used to not have a fence around it, and it was a school pride thing where our sports teams and the teams of visiting schools would get their picture taken in front of it as their team picture. Well, one year a group of seniors broke into the school one night, stole it, broke it in the process, panicked and ditched it out in the marsh near town. They eventually fessed up and it was recovered, sent to an art school where it was repaired and repainted with chemically matched paints to the original ones and fenced in. Those responsible didn't get to graduate. They had actually finished the school year and stole it between the end of class and graduation. Good news is the school replaced the locked gates with half-height gates right before I graduated, and sports teams can take pics with it again. Make sure to share your personal story in the comments below and have the opportunity to be featured in a future video. Also, if you like these topics, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification button to continue seeing more content like this every day. See you next time.